makes just off of super chats alone like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
So Hasan Piker just exposed the massive financial hypocrisy in online political discourse, and it's more revealing than you think. A Washington Post investigation found that far-right extremist Nick Fuentes is pulling in nearly $1 million from donations, while progressive voices get labeled as grifters. This breakdown shows how broken our political discourse really is.
But hey, guys, it's fine. He's not a socialist, so I'm sure all of the quote unquote leftists who constantly yell at me will not have an issue with this because he's not a socialist and also he's funny.
This perfectly captures the double standard. Progressive content creators face constant scrutiny about money, while actual fascists rake in cash without question. The media treats socialist commentary as inherently suspicious, but gives endless charitable interpretation to far-right extremism. It's a rigged game where advocating for worker rights makes you a grifter, but promoting white nationalism makes you authentic.
True reports from WAPO. We found out how much money Nick Fuentes makes from super chats. $900,000 since the start of Trump's second term.
$900,000 in just weeks since Trump's inauguration. That's not grassroots support, that's organized extremist financing. The Post used AI tools to track these payments, revealing a sophisticated funding operation behind what looks like organic viewer donations. This is how modern fascist movements build their war chests in plain sight.
For 7 years, Kosobianski has binged Fuentes' nearly nightly monologues from her home in Lorain, Ohio, watching as a college student from suburban Illinois grew into one of the most prominent torchbearers for an increasingly radicalized online right.
The economic irony is staggering. Christine, a struggling food truck worker in Ohio, sends her limited income to a wealthy extremist who despises people like her. This parasocial relationship exploitation is textbook fascist strategy, convincing the working class to fund their own oppression while believing they're part of an elite movement.
He has said that Adolf Hitler is awesome, and that most black people should be imprisoned, and that organized Jewry has corrupted society, and that women should be locked in breeding gulags and serve only as mothers, whores, or nuns.
These aren't edgy jokes or controversial takes. This is explicit Nazi ideology. Fuentes openly advocates for genocide, forced breeding programs, and racial imprisonment. Yet he maintains a platform and funding while progressive creators get deplatformed for criticizing capitalism. The normalization of literal fascism while demonizing social democracy is how democracies die.
Fuentes replied to one donor's message during a January stream: "We're building a cadre of professionals, money people, bureaucrats, and we need them to all be waving the flag, but quietly, ideologically, loyally. We've got to be underground."
Invisible empire is direct KKK terminology. This isn't accidental. Fuentes is explicitly describing a strategy to infiltrate government institutions with fascist loyalists. This goes far beyond content creation. It's actual seditious conspiracy planning funded by viewer donations. The January 6th attempt was just the beginning of this organized infiltration strategy.
10 accounts were responsible for giving him a total of about $77,000, while the top 500 accounts provided almost half of his super chat income, more than $400,000, the Post analysis found.
10 accounts providing $77,000 reveals this isn't organic viewer support, it's coordinated funding from wealthy backers. When half your income comes from just 500 accounts, you're not a grassroots influencer, you're a paid propagandist. This funding structure suggests organized white nationalist networks, not authentic viewer enthusiasm.
It's so funny that if you sincerely ask like a big chunk of leftists on the internet, a big chunk of right-wingers on the internet, they'd be like, who's the biggest like political grifter? Who makes the most money off of political commentary? Even leftists would probably universally say me. Meanwhile, these motherfuckers with like a fraction of the audience are raking in bigger funds off of just super chats alone. It's actually kind of crazy.
The perception problem is deliberate. Right-wing media has successfully branded progressive voices as grifters, while actual extremists making more money get portrayed as authentic. Even leftists internalize this propaganda, attacking their own allies while ignoring fascist fundraising operations. It's a masterclass in manufacturing consent for extremism.
The amount of freedom you have if you are just on the right to say whatever the you want and get endless loyalty and endless charitability, and sometimes even get charitability from liberals, is unbelievable.
This asymmetric tolerance is everywhere. Tucker Carlson can platform white nationalists and keep his career, but progressive commentators face constant bad faith attacks. Even liberal institutions give charitable interpretation to fascist rhetoric, while scrutinizing every word from the left. The Overton window only shifts right because we allow it.
We are, as a society, so primed to be forgiving of reactionary commentary, so forgiving of right-wing commentary, no matter how far right it goes. We are also endlessly unforgiving for anyone that says, you know, we could have a better world.
American political culture is conditioned to accept fascism as legitimate while treating social democracy as radical. We're more comfortable with calls for racial violence than universal health care. This conditioning serves existing power structures. Oligarchs would rather deal with fascists than face wealth redistribution. The tolerance is intentional and strategic.
There are prominent members of the Trump administration that have identical views to Nick Fuentes, like straight up. And they know it too. They talk about it all the time. No such equivalence exists on the left.
With Trump's current administration packed with Fuentes-adjacent figures, this asymmetry has real institutional power. Far-right extremists now occupy government positions while progressives remain marginalized. Stephen Miller's immigration policies align perfectly with Fuentes' white nationalist goals. There's no equivalent leftist influence in government. The pipeline only flows one direction.
Like, slowly but surely moving in the direction of mass control of mass politics is not a bad thing. There is no death and destruction at the end of this process, in the same way that there is death and destruction at the end of whatever vision Nick Fuentes has for society.
Social democracy built the most prosperous, equitable societies in human history: Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Fascism built concentration camps and genocide. Yet American discourse treats these as equivalent extremes. The false equivalence is absurd when you look at actual outcomes. One ideology creates thriving societies, the other creates mass graves.
Nick Fuentes found out the secret method to winning a broad coalition of watchers, which is be a prominent neo-Nazi who celebrates former Democrats. Because every goddamn Democrat loves getting a convert, okay?
Democrats' weakness for former leftist converts consistently legitimizes fascist voices. They platform people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. as authentic truth-tellers while ignoring actual progressives. This desperation for bipartisan credibility repeatedly amplifies extremist messaging to mainstream audiences. The strategy backfires every single time, but they never learn.
There's millions of monsters then, because they love my show and they agree with me way more than they agree with you, and they're pissed off and they will follow me into battle.
The military language isn't metaphorical. Fuentes explicitly calls for violent action. Follow me into battle, funded by hundreds of thousands in donations, creates a literal army with financial backing. This is how fascist movements transition from online rhetoric to street violence. The money trail leads directly to organized political violence.
The heart of Fuentes' message was that young men in the United States have gotten a rotten deal, and is telling a nation of entitled baby boomers like those leading the Republican Party had poisoned American society with bad jobs, unbearable women, and a racially diverse population intent on depriving white people of what they are owed.
Fascism always exploits real economic grievances, but redirects anger towards scapegoats instead of solutions. Young men do face economic hardship, student debt, housing costs, wage stagnation, but instead of targeting the oligarchs causing these problems, Fuentes blames women and minorities. Classic fascist playbook: real problems, fake solutions, profitable hatred.
It's so crazy that there are Americans who unironically think the hammer and sickle is the equivalent of this, by the way, a byproduct of liberal American education.
I think Hasan is like an enemy of the country. I think he's like Jackson Hinkle territory to me, like worse than Fuentes right now.
Anyway, whatever. This is a sad state of affairs.
This comment perfectly proves the entire point being made. Equating communist symbols with Nazi flags while calling progressive voices worse than Fuentes shows how thoroughly broken American political discourse has become. A content creator advocating for worker rights gets labeled as more dangerous than a literal Nazi. The propaganda worked exactly as designed.